Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. Dear friends, let us sit for meditation. Since the theme of this talk tonight is partly about mindfulness, we could consider the mindfulness of the thought of metta, the thought of loving kindness, which is a recollection that should be kept in mind night and day, whether standing, walking, or sitting. In every posture, one should recall the thought of kindness, because all beings are suffering, including our own self. And we want to undertake this beautiful practice of meditation for the sake of easing, diminishing, and dispelling the suffering of beings, including ourselves. If we focus on breathing in our meditation, the breath is a pure object. All beings everywhere share in this in-breath and out-breath. So in meditation, we can pay attention to the breath, knowing our own direct experience of it just the way it is, and knowing by inference that this breath is the same for all beings. All of them have to breathe. And the breath is always going on. Whether we noticed it or didn't notice it, it goes on without ceasing until we pass away. Taking one or two deep breaths to get a fix on where the breath is able to be noticed. Breathing in long, breathing out long, breathing in long, breathing out long. And completely relaxing on the out breath. Noticing the touch of breath, the nostrils, or the movement of the breath at the chest, or the movement at the belly. aware of how the breath conditions the body, how the oxygen goes into the blood and refreshes the red blood cells so that every part of the body is refreshed with the breathing. Noticing as the breath is more calm, more relaxed, aware of the long or short, if the breath is longer or if it's shorter. Aware of the beginning and ending of each breath. With each in-breath, notice exactly where it begins. And the end of each in-breath, and the beginning of the out-breath, where the breath ends, where it begins. As the breath becomes more subtle, if the mind wanders, don't struggle or blame yourself. Instead, use that wandering mind as an object of meditation. See its impermanent nature, how fickle it is, how difficult to control. That's the nature of impermanence. The mind is impermanent. And if the mind just stays in the present, very calm, you may feel sleepy. The sleepiness is so sweet, but it doesn't lead to insight. So visualize a bright light or move the awareness around the body to become more alert, like seeing the breath beginning at the nostrils, with the middle in the chest and the end in the belly for the in-breath, and then for the out-breath, beginning in the belly, the middle in the chest, the end at the nostrils, moving awareness around like that can help to wake up, get over that sleepiness. Or if the restless emotions come in, worrying about something not yet completed, regretting something you did wrong, upset about what someone did to hurt you, then deliberately bring the mind to the present moment. If desire comes in, say a pleasant thought comes in, and you want to go there. You want that pleasant thing, a pleasant fantasy, a pleasant memory, to just stay in pleasure. Remember that desire never leads to happiness. And come back to the present moment. or if anger comes in, if hatred or dislike comes in, then call up the loving kindness practice and overcome disliking with loving kindness. Or if doubt arises about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, this doubt can block your progress in meditation. You have to overcome it, remembering what is inspiring and uplifting about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And just continue meditating on the breath. I sort of made a promise to myself and to the email that I would look at, start looking at the factors of awakening, the seven Bojjhangas. Bodhi means awakening or enlightenment, and Anga means a factor. So put them together, you have a Bojjhanga, which is factors of awakening. We see them mentioned in context of the Satipatthana, the suttas on mindfulness, and the Anapanasati Sutta, the sutta on the breath, in-breathing and out-breathing. They mention that when meditating on the breath, one fulfills the foundations of mindfulness and one fulfills the factors of awakening. In a certain way, the meaning of mindfulness has become confused because of the way that it's been adapted by so many different secular systems. They teach mindfulness in the school. They teach mindfulness to patients in the hospital as a means of managing with pain. They even teach mindfulness in the military so that the soldiers can be more mindful. I don't know if it's really true. This is just something I read. There's a very standard description of mindfulness that you see in the psychological literature, which is a special kind of non-judgmental present moment awareness. And that, according to the article I read, that that explanation of mindfulness sort of came more from a Zen background and not really from the Theravada background. It may be more useful to look at what the Buddha said about sati. And that can give us a very nice way of understanding it, not only in terms of the domain of sati as being directed towards the body and the elements of the mentality, including the feelings, the states of mind, and the phenomena of the dhammas that can be understood. But also, if you look at the sutta, it gives a very clear instruction about how to pay attention. And it's this how that I wanted to just go over with you. It's not extremely complicated. I think we may be able to listen and understand. So the first idea that we see in the sutta is about why practice mindfulness. What is the purpose? And I could give 4 reasons for the practice, or 4 intentions for the practice. One is for the purification of the mind. So if the mind is impure, whatever actions or speeches we do will come to a painful result. If the mind is pure, whatever speech or action we do will come to a non-painful result. So even if we have a lot of unskillful habits, like if we typically are temperamental or greedy or emotional or filled with fear or filled with different kinds of emotional afflictions, it could be that just during the hour or the half hour or whatever length of time that we're sitting in meditation, because we're not involved in those emotional subjects, that we're not involved in those impure, unskillful states of mind. And then just having a period of time to rest when in that purity of just watching, that's a very healing state. Then the second reason it says is to overcome sorrow and grief, dukkha domanassa. So why are we sorrowful? Why are we in pain? Why are we grieving and depressed? Well, it's because of our attachment, because of our greed. Thank you. Normally, in our everyday life, there are a lot of things we do that are conducive to developing attachment, that are conducive to even if you are trying to do your chores, it could be like very natural to start to identify with the chore that we're doing and do it in a really nice way, and so that it will come out looking good. And already that identification has come up in the process of doing the ordinary activities of life, not to mention our relationships with the people that we're close to, whether it be our family or other people we're close to. It's very normal. Attachment arises all the time. But in meditation, we don't have to be involved with that. So we can be away from those kinds of attachments, away from greed, just being there for whatever arises in the mind. And to whatever extent we let go of attachment, to that extent, we're letting go of sorrow and grief. Then it says to put ourselves on the right path. And in this case, this is the path of practice that's been offered to us by our teacher, the Buddha, the Eightfold Noble Path. And so if we have gone off the path, gotten off track, come to be derailed, fallen into a ditch, then in this meditation, each time we are coming back and setting our awareness to be well connected with the object of meditation, at that moment we're putting ourselves on the right path. And then the last purpose is to realize nibbana. So even somebody who's been meditating for a long time, who's got a good meditation habit, and one is able to sit down to pick up the breath or another object of meditation and to stay with that object and to investigate like that. If we want to always be lifting our practice up to the next level, if we can recall our highest aspiration of nibbana, then that will give life to the practice, because we've got that energy of moving into a direction and not just following along on a comfortable habit. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are the body, the feeling, the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling, this citta, or could say the state of mind, and the Dhamma, which you could say is the phenomena, or particularly those phenomena that have been pointed out as being very beneficial for contemplation, such as the Four Noble Truths, the quality of impermanence, and so forth. Now I'm going to give you 3 ideas about how to look at these foundations. And in a certain way, the mindfulness of the body is very fundamental. There's one entire sutta, the Kayagata Sutta, which is just about mindfulness of the body. And it says there that practice by itself is sufficient to go all the way. So mindfulness of the body, together with the 7 bojjhanga, the 7 factors of awakening, is enough to get the full benefit from this practice. The other 3 factors, you could say, are extra credit, extra polishing. So I'll give the example in terms of the body. So the first is see the body exactly as it is. Yatha bhuta jnana dasana. If you think about your own body, if you're looking at, like in terms of the list of the parts of the body, head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, at that point, you could be just at a very superficial conceptual level and just say, okay, hair, teeth, body, skin, body hairs, head hairs, skin, and just looking at the surface, but not going deeply into it. In a certain way, those things are just the words, is just a concept. It doesn't take you that far. But then if you look more closely, like a scientist, you really want to know, what is it really? You may notice that these parts of the body are constantly changing. Even if the parts of the body seem to be the same from day to day, you know, like I still have the same number of teeth that I had yesterday. But in a subtle way, they're always changing. And over a longer period of time, they're changing in a very drastic and dramatic way. Another kind of concept that a person can have about their body is this body is beautiful or this body is ugly. And the body image, which is a kind of a self-image, and we got this probably as a result of the social interactions that we had with our parents or with other people. I know one family, they had 2 children, and their first child was very nice looking. And their second child was very funny looking. And when I reflect about this, I realized that the little child who was nice looking probably mommy and daddy would like really enjoy looking at them. And just by that reflection of that pleasure that other people have, that kid could have got, picked up an idea like this body is beautiful. And that then could evolve into a biased concept that could support greed, or it could support attachment. It could support subsequently being in a lot of being in pain when as they get older, they lose their looks and it's not that beautiful anymore. And so the person who's identified or clinging to an idea of a beautiful body is set themselves up for pain. But if you see the body exactly the way it is, the way it really is, you don't have that kind of a concept. And I think that other child who was funny looking, what I think might have happened, I'm not saying this really happened, but it could have happened, that the parents would focus on that second child and what a nice personality they have, or some other qualities they have, but they didn't really want to look at their body. They didn't want to look at that funny looking body. And so then, that child could have had a completely different self body image that could have been very difficult, or created difficulties in approaching real mindfulness, because they'd gotten kind of like this social training not to look and see how it really is. But if then we can be completely unbiased, go beyond concepts, just look, what's it really like? Seeing the body without attachment and without dejection. Seeing how it's always changing. Seeing the body in a way which is very impartial. So that practice already is not that easy to do. And that practice of seeing the body exactly as it is, in a certain kind of way, goes very easily to the contemplation of the mind. It would be one of the features of the mind, or a feature of consciousness, is that, consciousness is experiencing what it's like to be me. What's it like to see a blue sky? What's it like to see a yellow flower? What's it like to have a sip of tea? That direct knowing, that direct experience, that preconceptual experience of things is a capacity of the mind. So when we come to see the body as it is, it also gives us some way of seeing and understanding the mind. So that's one thing about what is mindfulness. Mindfulness is seeing the body, or the object of mindfulness, in reality, truthfully, the way it is. And then the next training that's given in the Satipatthana is to see the arising of the body, the falling of the body, the rising and falling of the body. This gives the insight into impermanence, and it also gives the insight into conditionality. So for each breath, there's a beginning and an end. The simple training, again and again, over many hours of meditation practice, training the mind to see the beginning and the end of that breath arising to our awareness, and when it comes to its ending. And even other things that appear to be more stable. Let's say I'm sitting in our meditation hall and the floor is made of ceramic tile of a certain color. And so while I'm paying attention to that, it's arising. And when my mind goes somewhere else, it's disappearing. So it's ceasing from my experience because my mind is going elsewhere. So what is this third aspect, this rising and falling? Because if you see the rising and you see the falling, you see both. Why does the Buddha say, give you this third way of seeing, to see the rising and falling? Well, one idea is that it's leading us towards seeing this constant flow of the sankhara, of conditionality, reconditioning everything. So the breath is arising because of conditions. It exists because those conditions are there. When those conditions stop, the breath stops. If we learn to look at a more and more fine detail, seeing what they call the minor moments, like a breath takes a long time. One whole in-breath takes, I don't know how long it takes, a second or half a second. But there's already, millions of moments within a half a second. And there may be dozens of moments that can easily be perceived by us within half a second. So training the awareness closer and closer to see the arising, the peak, and the cessation of the minor moments within each breath. And that's what's meant by seeing the rising and falling. So that's a training of the mind. And that training causes the solidity of different objects, the way we conceive them, to fall apart, and instead to be experienced as a kind of like in pixels, like as the ever-changing flow of pixels, or you could say like if you had a gigantic flock of starlings, I think you would have many thousands of starlings flying through the sky together, and it seems to be like one object that's making different shapes in the sky. Like now it looks like a snake, and then it looks like a horse, and then it looks like a mouse, and then it looks like something breaking up. And so that's the way that it appears of something even so simple as the breath. So you can develop that the direct experience of that insight, or that by means of looking at the arising, falling, arising and falling. And then the third way of looking at things when we're practicing mindfulness is that we should look at them internally, externally, and both. I'm not sure whether this is completely true or not, but I have read in a book that the tradition came to be a little bit confused about internally, externally, and both. There are different interpretations, but the one that's that I most commonly hear from modern teachers is that internally we're looking within ourselves. So we look say, at our own breath body, and we can experience directly that our own breath body is constantly changing, then externally we can consider the breath body of other beings, and we can understand by inference that they also are always changing. Now, because we're social animals and we're interacting with other people and with animals and creatures, it's not only inference. Like in the case of breath, we can see the evidence that the other beings are breathing, and that their breath is constantly changing. If we're thinking about the contemplation of our states of mind, you could say that it's not possible to know about another person's state of mind unless you have the psychic ability of mind reading. But we're humans, we're social animals, we communicate. And so when the mother is gazing into the eyes of the infant child, that infant is getting a direct experience of the mother's state of mind. Or if someone who we respect is disappointed with us and they're giving us a very cold expression, right? We can experience their state of mind. But we could say at worst, at least we inferentially know. So we know what it's like for us, and we know that it's like this for all beings. I have the desire for happiness. Other beings have the desire for happiness. I am constantly changing. Others are constantly changing. This mind of mine is very fickle, and changing and hard to grasp, even difficult to understand and see clearly, because the mind is so constantly and quickly changing. It's even difficult to remember 10 minutes ago, what was the mind experiencing, or what was the mind doing 10 minutes ago, and what is it doing now? It's so difficult to experience within myself. And so then I could know that other people could be having the same experience with their own minds about the fickleness and the changeability of the mind, and the difficulty of pinning it down and controlling and directing the mind. So that's the second part, is seeing it externally. And then seeing it internally and externally. This is where we come to the impersonal level. We see it at the level of everything, like all beings, including ourselves, are changing everywhere all the time. And so this is where the perception, like this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself, can very beautifully arise when we just practice looking at our experience, everything we experience, look at it internally, externally, and both. Yeah. I mentioned that I wanted to speak about mindfulness and investigation, but I think you could see that as the practice of the satipatthana, or the practice of mindfulness meditation, is described in the suttas, it really is including aspects of both mindfulness, that direct awareness, and also an aspect of investigation, meaning not to be contented to just stay on the surface, like staying at the level of a concept is just skating on the surface, but looking in a way that sinks into whatever we're experiencing, or sinks into the object. That's that investigation is going down into it. Or another way of thinking about the enlightenment factor of Dhamma Vichaya, or investigation of Dhammas, is that with this, I could even say this mindfulness procedure, look at the body or the object of meditation as it actually is, see the arising and falling, see it internally, externally, and both, that this leads directly to discovering the Four Noble Truths and the nature of dukkha and the nature of the escape from dukkha, the nature of ignorance and the nature of escaping from ignorance. And so in that way, within the practice of mindfulness, there is quite a lot of investigation. I want to pause here and see whether there are questions about what I have tried to explain so far. And I see one comment. In what sutta are the 4 reasons for mindfulness found? I'll come back to that later. Diana's commenting about not reading people's mind, but you can feel the energy that the other person emits. Yes, indeed, you can feel it. Richard, I was listening to a Dhamma talk that listed those 4 reasons for mindfulness, and they sounded so familiar to me. I get the feeling that it's in the refrain of the or a portion of the Satipatthana, but I didn't look it up in the sutta myself. I just listened to a teaching, and that was my memory about it. Okay, Damon.
I like the idea of seeing the beauty of of each other. Well, let's say seeing the body for what exactly it is, so that we're not looking at the superficial qualities of the body, but nonetheless, does that mean that we could instead have a better ability to perceive the inner beauty of each other?
Well, there is, this is my opinion, but I think there's a great connection between virtue and beauty. So that which is skillful is, the very definition of skillfulness or of virtuous ethics is something which is conducive to our welfare and our welfare and happiness, and something which is harmless, something that's not conducive to harming. And so then, when we experience in ourself or another that behavior which has got that skillful quality, then there's a tremendous experience of safety and ease and happiness being with that kind of person, or having oneself be that kind of person, because that kind of person won't hurt you. Or if it's you, you won't hurt yourself, and you won't hurt anybody else. And so that's, to me, what inner beauty is. And certainly when we looking for a Kalyanamita or a good spiritual friend, or looking for a teacher, you will see that the teacher has a certain kind of an affect, which is a pleasant affect because of their goodness. And that's completely separate to their physical features.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
But it's also, I think it's really true. People have got a lot of hang-ups about their bodies, whether it be because of the body thinking it's beautiful or thinking it's not beautiful. Either direction, people get very hung up, and they have a lot of unskillful emotional things that get built up around their bodies. And just to take away all that unskillful stuff, but just say, well, okay, whatever, it's a body.
Right.
Diana. You're muted.
But what you're saying about bodies, my mom always wanted me to look like my 6-foot tall cousin who was built like a supermodel. Sorry. But to expand more on what Damon was saying, a lot of those of us who, who are highly sensitive, if you found yourself being bullied as a kid or teased a lot, is because of our ability to be sensitive. And especially guys, you didn't know, and if you were brought up in my time, I was born in 1958, you were brought up in my time, you weren't supposed to be. You weren't allowed to be that. And so a lot of blocks were built up towards that. But here you are, you're this highly sensitive person. And, I was bullied from grade school through high school, and it got less and less in high school. There's still, and then I was bullied at home too, because I had a borderline parent. But what I realized is the sensitive person, we do have a gift of being kind of a sanctuary for other people. And as we come to realize this inner beauty in ourselves, as I was saying, the becoming aware and self-aware and mindful, you'll find people drawn to you who feel safe being themselves. And you're kind of a soft place to fall for many people. And I've always had the gift of what they call clairvoyance or discernment, that I just see people for who they are, and I scare people because I don't even know I'm doing it. I say something and I see past their facade, and I don't know that I'm doing it, because I just accept what I see. And I've had people stop talking to me because of it. But knowing that you have that gift of sensitivity, that gift, that wonderful thing. I mean, Damon and Richard and all, these people, you guys, this thing that you've been searching for, it's already there. You have it. It's there. And the teachings of Buddha, even Jesus, was learning from Buddha and learning from the Hindus and everything, finding that and bringing that back to his people. All of them were teaching you how to love yourself. What my anthropology teacher was teaching us. He says, all of them were based in love, how to love yourself. And that's, to me, that's what it is loving. It's not about your body, it's yourself.
What I want to invite you to consider having that intuitive awareness of others. Look at what the Buddha did with his intuitive knowledge. He examined how the beings are reborn into different conditions according to their karma. And he had the experience with his own previous lives about his own rebirth according to his karma. And from that, he had the profound knowledge of the dukkha of samsara, of being trapped, of going round and round in the cycle of rebirth. And his tremendous compassion and urgency to discover that piercing insight that there is a way out. And so, like, as we encounter people all over the time, everybody's got their moods, they've got their rough patches and their beautiful patches, and their deeply internalized things that they still need to work with. And all of that is part of reality. But we can go, the purpose of this meditation is to be to come to a place that's really beyond being caught up in this is right, or this is wrong, this is happy, this is unhappy, all of those dualities. And then to just doing that the practice about internally, externally, and both. It's like to see, like, as deeply and directly as we can, what's the nature of our own mind-body experience with what's arising. And then depersonalizing it by realizing that it's the same for us and the same for all beings. And just working that insight about the connectivity, interconnection, or the similarity among all beings. And that is leading to a transformation of our consciousness. If there's anybody in the room who would like to improve on what I said by commenting, do you have anything to add? No? Okay. I should have gotten the citation because the talk that I listened to earlier, that teacher was giving it in English and Pali. And so if I took time to, I know I'm skillful enough to be able to search for a Pali phrase, and I pretty easily find the sutta that it comes from. I just didn't take the trouble to do that before coming to tonight's program. There's a retreat, a 7-day retreat on the 7 factors of awakening that was given this May, just May 2023, at the Bhakti Society in West Virginia. And the retreat was taught by this Bhante Uddhama Jiva, who I've been interested in recently, and shared with Bhante Gunaratana. So there's two excellent and very reliable Theravada bhikkhus in the Sri Lanka traditions who can easily be found on in the computer, and one can listen to their Dhamma talks about the factors of awakening. Another idea about the mindfulness, which I think is something that Richard had alluded to a couple of weeks ago, is that in the Satipatthana, there's given a sequence of contemplations. So it's not just something that's very abstract and simple that you just watch the breath. But that instead, in the Satipatthana, there's seeing the different postures, and then seeing how, as the body is moving among the different postures, how everything is changing all the time. Like even snapping your finger, all the five aggregates changed. In doing that, the body's changed. There's a feeling with that. There's a perception of that. There's an intention of that. There's a consciousness of that. So everything just changed with every action that we do. That's the six. One exercise is breathing. One is the postures, sitting, standing, walking. One is the awareness, sati sampajanya, which is being aware of the purpose, the suitability, the field, and the wisdom of in each intention, the 32 parts of the body, the elements, and looking at the stages of the dead body, the stages of decomposition. These are all things that can be studied, and they are contemplations or exercises or activities that can, each one can be something that can be used and developed, and with looking at different aspects of mindfulness, this wisdom we have in different ways so that it can grow. Richard, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. You just mentioned it again, but near the beginning of your talk, I believe I remembered hearing you say something about the bodily parts, which
Yes.
so the way it's translated, like Bhikkhu Bodhi, this is in he calls it the foulness section.
Yes.
But actually that Pali word is better translated as unattractive, because without the A in front, it just means attractive. So with an A in front, it's like unattractive. Now, these are not meditational objects of disgust. And we can understand that because the example that the Buddha gives here is, he says, just as though there were a bag with an opening at both ends full of many sorts of grains, such as hill rice, red rice, beans, peas, millet, and white rice, and a man with good eyes were to open it and review it thus: this is hill rice, this is red rice, these are beans, these are peas, this is millet, this is white rice. So too a bhikshu reviews the whole body. Now, there is a translation here. It says, as full of many kinds of impurity. Now, generally we hear that term and we think something dirty or nasty, right? But actually in this context, as we can tell by the example, because clean hill rice and red rice and beans and everything in a bag, there's nothing impure about that. You just look at it, okay, beans.
Yeah.
It actually means, as opposed to a solid object that's just one thing, like say pure gold, okay? It's a mixture. It looks, because of the skin and everything, like it's one thing, like as if you're looking at a statue made out of, some kind of rock or something, right? Like it's one thing. It's not. It's all these different items, and that's what the Buddha is really trying to impart here. When you think of your body, it's not a solid thing that I am this. It's a whole bunch of little assembled parts, all kind of stuck together and living together and working together. Anyways, that's my view, and I just thought it might be interesting for people to contemplate that.
Indeed, there's a way in which when we see an object as like being purely like its essence, like that's Richard, and it's just the essence of Richard, and it's just one essential thing, and it's 100% Richard all through and through, then that would be not the way the Buddha is saying to see it. He's saying see it as a mixture of elements, and when you break down the elements, it loses its identity. Another metaphor for that is if you were to, if someone butchered a cow and cut it into parts, say, then the ribs, that you cook and eat your dinner, you don't say you're eating the cow. You say you're eating beef, because it's not a cow anymore. And if you think, do I eat pigs? No, I don't eat pigs, but I might eat pork or something like that. So it changes its identity when it's subdivided into the elements. And so the same way that the identity that we have, like this deep psychological construct that we have about the self, can become weakened and dismantled when we look at the body in terms of the parts, or look at any other aspect of what we experience in terms of the parts. Yeah. Usually, though, people are so biased about the body, they're not even ready to do that analysis. And so that was like the other aspect that I was trying to get to is trying to get beyond like and dislike, so that you can just kind of like be kind of objective and just say, well, there it is. It is what it is. Let's look and see and try to understand it. Okay. It's 8:30. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, your patient listening, and for your practice. Let's pay respects to the Triple Gem. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teachings so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha.
Thank you, Aya.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.